Hello, everyone. Welcome. It is the OTFB Football Podcast. I am Dana. This is Kate. Oh my gosh. I was just telling Kate. Well, first of all, I'm apologizing for my hair being in a ponytail because it is the devil's armpit in Kansas City today. I don't know what the rest of your guys' weather is like, but oh my God, it is disgusting in Kansas City today. So sorry about that. But I was just telling Kate, it's hard to imagine for me, Kate, that it's time to start this groove again, right? It is. I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, this was a fast off season.
I don't know, fast. There were times where I felt like there was just nothing going on and it was never going to end. And so all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, it's July. We're like doing training camp things and Hall of Fame is in 3 weeks. And I don't know where the time went.
I don't either. Like, I knew I have been on vacation. That is one of the reasons that we took such a long hiatus, is that I was gone for 2.5 weeks and I had a great time. My dear friend Shona Skinner now used to be Duke. You guys might know from the NFL UK podcast. She got married in Scotland. We had a great time. But I think that ate up a big chunk of my life, like, because June was just like gone for me. And normally that's where you're scraping for anything, to have some news. But I was discussing this with my son. I feel like there was almost a little lack of drama this year, right? Like the post June 1 cuts weren't there. Like there just didn't seem to be a lot of drama.
Really, once Aaron Rodgers signed with the Jets, there's not that free agent that we're all waiting on. There's really not been, nobody's been arrested, knock on wood, God willing, between now and this. There's just been nothing good or bad. There's been really nothing going on.
Right. Other than the gambling stuff that came out, right? But
yeah.
Okay, we knew that was going to happen, right?
Right.
In fact, let me say this. Today I was looking up and doing some research we're talking about the NFC. I didn't even tell you guys what we're talking about tonight. We're going to talk about the NFC tonight.
If you want to know about the AFC, you got to go to our YouTube channel, look at our podcast from June. Dana and I did a whole hour plus on the AFC.
Yeah, we did. It was a good time. And so go check that out. We're going to do the NFC tonight. This is technically the end of our off-season programming. The beginning of the 2023 season starts next week, but it's all right in a row, so it's kind of fun. But I was looking up, doing some research, trying to do a little digging for today's show, looking at the different divisions. And honest to God, Kate, the first 10 sites that would pop up on Google when I would search something were all betting sites. Betting. These are the odds. This is how much you can bet. This go here, and this is what are the odds for this and the odds for that. I was so irritated. And I wasn't irritated because I had to dig to find the information I was looking for. I was more irritated that they're so pissed that these kids got busted gambling when all you see is gambling stuff.
Well, and not just that, I noticed it last year in the coverage in the media on, the ESPN and the big networks. Mm-hmm. They all have a betting segment. They're telling you what the lines are. All the radio shows around here have betting segments. Like they're shoving betting down my throat. Right. I have to know what the lines are and what the plus and minuses mean. I don't know. I don't care. I'm not. Give me a slot machine, some Texas Hold'em, maybe a roulette wheel. I'm all sports betting. I don't get. It's win or lose and all the other stuff. So to your point, they're just shoving it down our throats. You're right. When I was Googling stuff, the first 10, it says ad and it's all betting sites. Mm-hmm. And yet you're going to be surprised when some of the players get a little involved in the betting.
Right. So I think in our chat, it's already shown up that Lisa's not here today because Camden's like, but Gino, right? We are going to talk about Geno Smith. Camden, do not worry. And Lisa can't be here to argue with us. So that'll be great.
She'll be arguing in spirit.
Oh, she will be for sure. And the fun thing is I think we get Sonia back next week, which will be great. But all right. So let's go ahead and get started because this could end up being a longer show. I mean, we try and keep it to 30 minutes. We never do. And we get it to 40, but this might be a little longer than that. But so we're going to start with the NFC North. And the reason why I wanted to start here is because of what we were already talking about, Kate. I feel like this division had a little bit of drama due to the Aaron Rodgers situation. And that, it took him a while and finally got traded to the Jets. Was he going? Was he not? Yes, he's going, but when? And all that went on. And how hard that really was on the fan base. I really kind of felt bad for the fan base at that point. But what's interesting to me when looking at this team is not like, oh, Aaron Rodgers is gone, we're dead, we're just going to be last in our division. They are all in on Jordan Love. I mean, the comments that have been coming out of Trent camp, rookie camp, and out of mandatory camp, it was impressive how behind this quarterback they were. And I don't know if it was bullshit, to be quite honest with you. I don't know if it was just like, yes, we have to keep, the fans engaged, whatever it was. But I think that this division really is probably the tightest division in my thought in the NFC. This is a division where really, if you look at the teams, a lot of them are very evenly matched. And we're, we have to talk about the Bears. We will talk about the Bears. Even they are having some upside. But this division, in my thought, this one could be really interesting this season.
I agree. I think when we talk NFC South, I think that's going to be a really tight division, but I don't think it's going to be tight because they're all going to be good. I think we'll talk about them. Yeah. I think the Lions made huge strides last year. Mm-hmm. I'm still puzzled as why Kirk Cousins can't win a playoff game. They had the second
why he's still their quarterback.
NFC, won 13 games, and he just can't get it. I have no faith in him. Packers and Lions are ready to make a run for this division. Right. And I think they're all going to be very, very good. We'll see if they can do what the NFC East did last year, which is see if they can maybe send 3 teams to the playoffs.
That would be interesting.
But,
so Katie posted up there, they're probably glad to get that old weirdo out of there. You know, Katie, I don't know if you're wrong. Like, I don't know. And it's not because he's an old weirdo, though he is an old weirdo. But I think at the same time, when you look at the Packers, I think that there was a heaviness there because of Aaron Rodgers. And yes, he was a league MVP over and over again. And yes, he had all these accolades, but he was heavy on the shoulders of that team. It'll be interesting to see how much lighter and how much more fun they have this year.
Well, but the focus wasn't on the game and on the field, on the plays. It was always on him. And that's got to weigh, to your point, to the heaviness. That's got to weigh on everyone else of like, can we just get done with that so we can get on to doing games?
Agreed. So if you look at, let's start with the Packers. So if you look at the Packers, they still have some good players there, including that defense. I don't know if the defense has been talked about a ton, but they have in one article it said an extensive collection of first round picks. Now we all know that that doesn't always mean a lot. But if you look, they have Lucas Van Ness, they have Quay Walker, they have Jair Alexander, Eric Stokes, Kenny Clark, Devontae Watt, Rashawn Gary. There's a lot of names there that are good football players and have some clout behind them. Now, the focus was always on the quarterback in Green Bay, always. And sadly, depending on how Jordan Love plays this year, it could be again. But they do seem to have a pretty decent defense that's going to come in there. They also have, and I think that this is interesting, they have this running back room that Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon, and that is going to be the savior of this offense. I guarantee you, because they are going to have to look and at Jordan Love, they're going to have to ease him in. They're going to have to look and find out what his strengths really are, because we don't know what this kid can bring to the table. And so I think that running back room is going to be hugely important for them. I do really, truly believe that this team will live and die by Jordan Love's play, without question, because I do think that there's enough there in other places that they could have. They have some wins under their belt. I don't think that Green Bay is written off in this division at all.
I agree. And this is one of those times where I wish Lisa was here, just because I do remember how high she was on Jordan Love when he came out in the draft. And I would love to get her thoughts on how she thinks he will go. She wanted him to start right away. I do remember that she thought he was one of those guys who could start right away. So I'm sure she will be very interested to see how he does this year. And if he's got his head on right. If he does, I think he could really, I was going to say hit home run. He could really do well.
Yeah, I think so too. Green Bay's going to be a fun team. Now, sadly, you guys, we can't get super deep into each one of these teams just simply because of our time. But I want to talk about the Lions next, because really what the Detroit Lions have become is the new darlings of football. They're the underdog that everyone wants to win. And when you watch when you watch the end of their season, you could just see these steps that they were taking over and over and over, and they were doing so well that now people want that to continue, to the point that the NFL put them up against the Chiefs on opening night. I mean, I think that says a lot about what the league and what fans are feeling about this team right now. Here's the interesting thing about Detroit. They have not won their division since 1993, when it was still the NFC Central. It has been a minute, ladies and gentlemen. And I really feel like this could be, I mean, this is the year they're going to contend. I mean, we always say everything's shiny on paper, injuries, all that stuff. We get into that in our Pick'em show. But I really feel like they're starting to put together some pieces that are really interesting, including, surprisingly, Jared Goff, right? Like, no one really expected much out of Jared Goff when he got traded. I mean, the Rams just basically dumped him for Matt Stafford, who, I don't know, you could look at the two of them and see who's helping their team more. Obviously, Stafford got them a ring, but what have you done for me lately, Matt Stafford, right? And so I think that is an interesting conversation to be had at some point in the future of football. But I do think that they have some really interesting players coming in. Sadly, they also have some going out, and that was because the Lions were really got the lion's share. Yeah, that's a bad pun, but I'm just going to say it anyway. Got the lion's share of the NFL sports betting. There was, I think they let 3 or 4 players go. There's a 6-game suspension for another one. And so that's going to be tough for them. But, they get back Jameson Williams. If he's fully healthy, he could really help at the end of his 6-game suspension, because he does have to do that. But they have the pieces, and I really think that it's going to be a lot of fun. Again, as our dear friend Camden in the comments said, the Lions just need a defense. 100%. That is where they need to improve the most, because you can go back and watch that Lions Seahawks game. There was all kinds of offense between the two of them. Neither one of them had a defense at the time, and it was pretty sad. So I'm excited about the Lions.
Yeah, I think they spent a lot of time last year focusing on offense and Jared Goff and proving that he was the right quarterback for them. And it really started clicking the second half of the season. And then I think is when they realized, we need some defense. So hopefully they'll start the season right out the gate with that offense that was doing so well. And that defense will pick up a little bit of speed.
Well, they had some great additions in free agency. You had Cameron Sutton, CJ Gardner-Johnson, Emmanuel Mosley. They got a first-round linebacker, Jack Campbell. A lot of people were excited about that. And then second-round, Brian Branch. So I think that it's there. You could tell that's where their focus was in the offseason. So hopefully that'll go well for them. So then you got to look down. We got to talk about these Vikings for just a little bit. And here's the thing. Vikings drive me crazy. I don't know, other than they didn't have a chance to do anything different, why Kirk Cousins is still their quarterback. Kate, I need you to explain it to me.
I don't understand it, because I and everyone I know and our Vikings fans that follow us are all like, yeah, we're done. Yeah, we're done. Maybe they couldn't get an offer for him.
That's what I'm thinking.
Which I find hard to believe. They won 13 games last year. His stats during the regular season were excellent. His problem is, much like we'll talk about with our friend Dakota, is winning the night games, winning the playoff games. They couldn't get out of their own way. Some of that for me was coaching and making really weird decisions, but some of it was just Kirk Cousins mentally wasn't there in critical situations. Maybe, he's what we call BATNA. He's their best alternative to any other option. If they didn't have another option and nobody was willing to offer them something to run with, that's the only thing that makes sense to me. I was trying to see if I could figure out if they even, from a depth perspective, their second guy is Nick Mullins, who isn't bad, and then Jaron Hall. They don't have a lot of options of somebody that I think could start week 1, and they didn't draft anybody at quarterback. So maybe they're just gonna ride or die with Kurt, at least through the end of his contract, and see what happens. I mean, 13 games is nothing to sneeze at, but we're hearing it from fans in Tennessee and other places of it's nice to win the division. It's nice to get to the playoffs. But if my quarterback can't win me a playoff game, he needs to go.
What's the point? What's the point of it at that point? They have Justin Jefferson still. And so any team with him on him is going to be a decent team. Justin Jefferson, an offensive player of the year. I mean, he was just fantastic. And God love him for what he did in my fantasy football league, which, by the way, if you want to join a fantasy football league, we have one at Our Turf. Let us know on Twitter. All right. And then they have, is it TJ Hawkinson that they picked up? I think so.
Tight end.
But here's all that matters. Are you ready? Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, and Eric Hendricks, Zadarius Smith, Patrick Peterson, gone. I'm not sure that you recover from that. I mean, they picked up some people, but oh my God, Vikings fans have to be completely panicked at this point.
Well, yeah, and when they talk about, is Kirk Cousins, how long is his leash? At what point do they pull him? The regular season was never his problem. So there is no leash. At the same time, if they don't see some kind of chemistry with him and these new receivers that they've got on the field, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't let someone else start just to see, because they know they can't win in the playoffs with them. And so if you can at least win regular season games with the new crew that you've got,
yeah.
It'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah. What are you supposed to do? Oh, Vikings fans.
You lose your job when you're winning.
I know. He's not bad enough to fire, but not good enough to keep. It's so he's beige. So I have a friend who I do a podcast with, and she's like, he is the epitome of beige. That's just who he is.
He's so beige.
I know, it's true. So let's look at the Chicago Bears, because what's going on in Chicago? I'm intrigued by this team a little bit. I know that's the face, Kate, that I would normally make, but then I'm like, So here is why. I am still not ready to give over on Justin Fields. I still think there is some very good football to come out of it. He just can't also be their running back. So what did they do? They went and got DJ Moore. He, as a number one receiver, he is already, they have Cole, is it Kmet? I always say that wrong. And Chase Claypool. But they got a tackle. They got Deontay Foreman. They got a fourth rounder, Roshan Johnson. So it's like they're trying to figure out to give him players that could maybe make a difference for him so he doesn't have to do it. I don't know that they're the caliber of players that will take them to win the division, but I think they could be better.
So to me, it all rests on Deontay Foreman and that offensive line. If they can run the ball, if they can, then that spreads defenses out. If you're either worried about the pass or Justin running the ball, you can get in a lot tighter, get him into all kinds of pressure, and then you win 3 games. If Deontay Foreman can do something this year, he had 900 yards last year. He can get 1,000 yards this year. That changes their offense. It makes it dimensional. Right now, it's one dimension. Right. That makes it dimensional. That gives them options. Their defense isn't great, but it's also not bad. And it kept them in a lot of games. Yeah. They lost a lot of close games. They just weren't able to put points on the board. And that's going to be the big thing. And I think this is probably a team where being underestimated. Everyone just assumes they're going to be at the bottom of the division. Everyone's going to overlook them. Probably the best for them. They're going to be like, just don't worry about them. Let us
silently sneak up.
Sneak on up. I think they're smart enough to know they got no shot at winning this division. It's going to be a hotly contested division, but at the same time, they can get to 500, which is a win if you're a Bears fan. If you can go from 3 to 8 or 9 wins, that's huge. That at least shows that what you're building is on the right path, and you don't have to stop and tear it down and rebuild, because I've lived through that. It's not good.
Right. So Camden puts in, but does Fields have any confidence less, or will he go running again? I think that's it. It's the line. I think that we're going to have to see how that does. I completely agree. We will have to see whether he starts to trust them or if he's running from ghosts. I mean, that's just the way it's going to have to be. I want to make one little point, and I was going to say it's a homer point, but that's funny because it is the running back Travis Homer that they picked up. Travis Homer has played for Seattle for like the last 5+ years. The interesting thing about Travis Homer is he was not the type of runner Seattle used. He was not in the Chris Carson, Marshawn Lynch, Kenneth Walker mold. He is more of a pass catcher, receiver, and running back. Not a bad player. Is he a starter? I don't think so. He started for us many times when when Seattle would lose all their running backs. But I do think that is someone that has a little versatility that could really help him there too. So while we're talking about Foreman and some of these other ones, I think that these littler guys and on special teams, as Cameron just said in chat, that is going to be huge for them and getting them some decent. So I'm excited for Travis Homer to have a new spot where maybe he can shine a little bit. So I think that'll be good.
Well, and he's a different kind of running back than Dante
completely.
Foreman. So that gives you options. That gives you short distance and other options where you can take Foreman out, let him get a breather, put Homer in. Mm-hmm. If you're playing around with the offense and if you're paying attention, if you're their offensive coordinator and you're creative with what you're doing with them, you can be successful with those two backs.
Oh, for sure. Because they're two totally different people. And it's going to be great. Yeah. So we'll see. I don't know. And like you said, their defense is not bad, not good. A few tweaks could really, swing them in a better. And then Justin Fields isn't spending so much time on the actual field. Yeah. Like that's a huge part of it, which then he just gets murdered behind the line.
This was for me, this is a defense that was clearly hampered by that whole chicken and the egg thing. Mm-hmm. Are they losing because the defense is bad, or is it because the offense is bad? So they have terrible field position. They're 3 and out. The defense can't rest. They've got to come back in.
Yep.
There's, you know what I mean? They played more minutes in the offense. They just got run down. Mm-hmm. And I think they took a beating at the end of games, and especially at the end of the year, where if that offense can, even without putting up points, if they can just sustain some drives, then that gives you a much better shot because your defense isn't winded all the time.
Absolutely. All right. So let's go ahead and move on to, do you want to do, Kate's doing one of these. Do you want to do NFC West or East?
Oh, let's do the East.
Okay.
Because this will be the quickest.
Seattle people. Oh, that is so true.
Because really, the Eagles, the Cowboys, the Giants, and the Commanders. The Eagles had 14 wins last year. Cowboys had 12. Giants had 9. Commanders had 8. Interesting division. 3 of them went to the playoffs. Philadelphia is bringing everybody back, and Jalen Hurts. They will most likely win the division. Dallas is bringing everybody back. Dak better show some people something this year and quit. He's got Brandon Cooks and Michael Gallup, and then he's got CeeDee Lamb and Tony Pollard. He's got the weapons. He needs to be healthy, and he needs to play all year. I don't want to see Cooper Rush. I don't want to hear his name. I want to see our boy Dakota all year, and then they'll be fine. The Giants with Mr. Daniel Jones really surprised me last year, really did well, let up at the end and in the playoffs. Saquon Barkley took a huge leap forward. On the receiving core, Isaiah Hodgkins, Darius Slayton, Paris Campbell, those guys are all going to be there. I think these 3 teams are going to be what they were last year. They're going to be right up there. Philadelphia, I think, is still the cream of the division. And then bam. The Commanders, I don't know. I have
no idea.
It's all going to be about Sam Howell at quarterback and, what he does, if anything. He's got to prove something to somebody this year. And then Chase Young doesn't want to be there. As of yesterday, is still there. He's really going to be, for me, the key to that defense. And if they just fix whatever they had going on, they were, I want to say they were 8-8. They had a weird 8-1. Yeah. And the Giants were 9-7-1. So this division, I think, is going to still lay out 1, 2, 3, 4 the way it did last year. Maybe the win totals are going to be different, but it's a real easy division for me to do really quickly just because they're all good and they're going to be good this year. And Sam Howell is really going to be the key to whether the Commanders move out of 4th and pass Daniel Jones and the Giants. If he maintains another year, I don't know if I believe in him or if I believe in his coaching as good as he looked last year. I thought he outkicked his coverage there at the end of the season. They played some emotional football there at the end. But I don't think it's a difficult division to kind of predict. They're all 4 going to be above 500. and they're all, but I think the Eagles are still the cream of that crop.
Well, let's start there. Katie had a great comment because I agree with her because it still stings, Katie. It hurts right here every time I see his name. The Jalen Carter thing will be interesting to watch. Is he going to be that player that they think he's going to be? But honest to God, he doesn't even have to. The rest of this team, they lost some significant players, turned around and brought other ones right back. They filled every hole they needed. This Philly team is as scary as they were last year. So I think it's going to come down to just health. It's going to come down to health, whether or not they can keep these players. And so I think, healthy. I think that is 100%. I think that Hurts is the quarterback we thought he was. He is exactly what they need. What's interesting to me is Dallas. I don't know what the hell is going on in Dallas. I'm going to tell you this. I think very much like Ron Rivera, I think that Mike McCarthy, this is it. If he does not figure out this team, he'll be gone next year. And I don't care how good of friends he is with Jerry. I think that's, this is it. I hate to say the term. We all know what term I'm thinking of. He's got to do it this year or he's out. But what I find interesting about Dallas is they let go of Ezekiel Elliott. I think he'll be back. I really think that they'll re-sign him, that they'll bring him back. I don't know that there's bad blood. I think it was just a contract issue. Why it hasn't happened yet, he's probably waiting to see if he's going to get some money from somebody else. Somebody's knee goes out during training camp and he's in for some dollars. That might be really good. But what's interesting to me there is Dak Prescott. I watch these quarterback rankings. They come out one right after another. And Dak is always top 5. If you look at his stats, yes, except for his interceptions, which were nuts last year. But much like Kirk Cousins, what have you done for me lately, Dak Prescott? It drives me crazy.
Yeah, and I think, letting Zeke go from a running back perspective, letting Zeke go wasn't a big deal. Tony Pollard had over 1,000 yards, one of his best career, teams. He had less touchdowns than Zeke, but they were using him differently. And then in January, he broke his leg and he had that high ankle injury. Mm-hmm. If he's not healthy, and maybe that's what Zeke's waiting for. Maybe they bring him back because Pollard isn't healthy to get the season started. Dakota needs to figure out what's going on with Dakota because
It just is so frustrating to me because we know how good he can be. We know how good and how respected he is in the league. It's just not coming up. Camden put in the comments, is Dak in the hot seat? I don't think so. I think Jerry's too loyal for that. But I think that his reputation is a little bit in the hot seat just because I'm just not getting what I need out of Mr. Dak Prescott. And I wish Michelle was here because she would say the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, he wants to be talked about with, Pat Mahomes and Jalen Hurts and these guys. He doesn't want to be talked about with Kirk Cousins and Ryan Tannehill. Right. And that's like, he's right in the middle now.
I feel like
that's where he's at.
Yeah.
I am remiss in not pointing out when we talked about the Eagles, that they considered at one point in the offseason changing their name to the Philadelphia Bulldogs after drafting Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, and Keely Ringo from Georgia, and more Georgia players than any other team.
That's awesome.
Can't wait to see what they do with them. The Cowboys ended up they had one draft pick, took Mozzie Smith, defensive tackle out of Michigan. Whereas the Giants, where's my list? Because I have my list because I try to remember and then I mess things up. Got cornerback Deonte Banks out of Maryland. He was very underrated. I'm glad they rated him in the first round. Maryland is a Big Ten school, and I watch a lot of Big Ten football, and they don't get a lot of love because they're really a basketball team, a school. They're not a football school, but this kid is good. And I was super excited to see him go in the first round and to see that scouts do pay attention to a really good player on a mediocre team. You know what I mean? So he will help a lot with the Giants on the defensive side of the ball. And then Washington went after Emmanuel Forbes, cornerback out of Mississippi State. And then got a safety in the second round, Jatavius Martin out of Illinois, which I thought was interesting for them to go cornerback safety with their first 2 picks. So clearly they were not happy with their defense and were looking to add some juice to that as well. So I think all four of these teams feel like they were in pretty good shape offensively and targeted defensive players, as quickly as they could to get some high caliber talent in the draft last year.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Giants depth chart because, I'm still pissed that Daniel Jones got that contract. Flipping quarterbacks, I'm telling you. Anyway, so, but, again, who else are you going to get, right? And so they have Daniel Jones and Tyrod Taylor are there. And then Tommy DeVito, which I love. I want him to play just because of his name. So anyway, so then you have Saquon Barkley, but will he play under the tag? I think they need to get that contract done ASAP. But you look at some of these other names. You have Darius Slayton, Paris Campbell, Sterling Shepard, Jalen Hyatt. I think that they have some depth there. They have Darren Waller is now, over there on offense. I think on offense, they're actually not bad. And then they got the John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt Center. And I think that could be a huge get for them. That could change a lot of Daniel Jones's decision-making skills, which is questionable at times. Kid's got an arm, but man, his decision-making skills. So I think that is, we'll have to see how that goes, and that'll be good. You look at their defense, they still have Thibodeau. And yeah, he got hurt at the end of the year, but he's going to be fine. And I think that with him there at linebacker, I think that's going to be just huge for them. So yeah, it's interesting. I don't know what to expect from the Commanders. I'm just going to say it flat out. I have no idea. I don't know what they're going to get out of their quarterback. I don't know what they're going to get out of their coach. We don't know what Young is going to do. They're changing owners. They're changing everything. I almost feel like this year should just be a wash for them while they figure out the culture of that team. But of course, that's not how it works in the NFL. So they're going to, of course, try to win some games. But I just find it really interesting that is a complete unknown to me, because there were times where Washington looked good. There were times that they really, really didn't. And so it'll be interesting to see what we get out of them, because I'm just lost with it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And I would add, for this division as a whole, this is one division where, well, if Lisa was here, she would tell you that starting quarterback is all that matters. They all have high quality backups. You've got Marcus Mariota in Philly. You've got Cooper Rush, who did just fine when he had to fill in for Dak last year in Dallas. You've got Tyrod Taylor with the Giants and Jacoby Brissett in Washington. They've all got somebody who, God forbid, knock on wood, if their starting quarterback goes out, they've got somebody very qualified who could step in for a game or two. So you don't even have that concern that we can talk about with some other teams in either the AFC or NFC, where if your quarterback is your ride or die, if you lose him, you're done. And this division all has qualified backups, so that's really not as big of an issue as it might be.
For sure. For sure. All right. So let's head on over to the NFC South. Now, okay, I'm just going to put this right to you, Kate, right now. The Bucks, Baker Mayfield. Come on. Thoughts? Any thoughts? How do you go from Tom Baker?
They thought that Tom Brady was going to come back out of retirement again. I don't know what to tell you. I had a number 6 added to my tattoo when he came to Cleveland after he won 3 games. That's how excited I was. It's how low the bar is for me. And then when he went to Carolina, I'm like, you know what? This might be the right place for him. And it isn't the right place for anybody in his draft class, because Sam Darnold didn't do well there either. And now he's in Tampa. And he's one of those guys who mentally can't get out of his own way.
Right.
He's doing commercials and this and that and the Cheesecake Factory parking lot with Debbie and Nancy, and I don't even know what all he's doing. If he would just play football and get out of his own way, he would be okay. He's short. We know he's short. You can't teach height, but he was short in Oklahoma, and they found ways to create plays that worked for him. They had an offensive line. They created passing lanes. He was very successful. You can be successful, Drew Brees, if you are not the world's tallest quarterback. You need an offensive coordinator who helps design and call the plays that work for your size and your gifts and your talents. And I'm hoping he found that in Tampa Bay. I would love for him to be successful somewhere. I just would.
I would too. I'm not begrudging.
I just don't know.
Yeah, I you know how I am about quarterbacks, but I'm not begrudging him, because I would like. I mean, we've seen redemption stories, and I can say Geno Smith because Lisa's not here. So, so it can happen. But Baker Mayfield has 26 passing touchdowns and 26 turnovers in his last 24 starts. I mean, it's going to be a difference going
and
from
probably
Brady
52 tipped balls.
Yeah. But here's the thing. Brady was not Brady last year.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to do those comparisons. Maybe he can do as well as Brady did last year, maybe. But that is not what this team is made up from. And I'm curious to see if now that they can watch a la Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, take the focus off your one shining star that you have on your team and make it a team sport again. Sorry, no offense to Tom Brady, but he sucks the air out of the room when it comes to football, right? So what do you do then? You still have Mike Evans. You still have Chris Goodwin, right?
Yeah, but they're not getting any younger.
No, they're not. But it's not like they're 40. You know what I mean?
But what they have experience. They won this division at 8 and 9 last year. This division is shameful. I've covered it the last few years. They won the division at 8 and 9, and the other three teams were 7 and 10. So it's not even like they ran away with it. Didn't nobody in this division want to go over 500?
They're like, we're good. We'll just stay here. Thanks.
I don't want to go to the playoffs. It'll be fine. There is a lot of experience on this team, both having played with someone like Tom Brady and then the years before, having gone to the playoffs, made deep runs, gone to the Super Bowl, all of that stuff. There is a lot of experience for Baker to rely on and to utilize if he lets them guide him and coach him.
Mm-hmm. It's not a terrible line either. Like I'm looking at the depth chart. It's not a terrible line. He has Chris Goodwin, Mike Evans, Trey Palmer. He's got Rashad White and Chase Edmonds for his running backs. He's got some, and that defense is still that flipping defense, right? You still have Vita Vea. You still have, Shaquille Barrett. You still have Levante David. You still have Devin White. You still have all of those guys. And so I think that once again, I'm beginning to think that if you can take away the bright light of Tom Brady, that it might work out okay. They could be fine. If not, if Baker stinks up the joint, they have Kyle Trask behind him. So maybe they need to look at some other quarterbacks just to have in the pen for sure. Katie said in our comments, she said he kind of reminds me a little of Johnny Manziel. I think he's actually much better than Johnny was. I think that he has at least moments where he looks good, but then he gets all too excited, like a little kid at Christmas, like, I got a touchdown. He's running down the field. I'm like, bring it back, mister. Act like
He is a classic case of someone who feels he needs to put the entire game on his shoulders.
Yep.
And gunsling, do it all, get it all back in one bite. Instead of just move the chains.
Just do
Play
it.
small ball.
Just do it.
Just move the chains. Don't turn it over. Don't throw some of the insane interceptions you've thrown. If you can't see your receiver, don't throw the ball. Over half of his interceptions were tipped to the line. I'm like, these are common sense things. You don't have to win the game all by yourself. You have 10 other players on the field with you.
Right.
Just keep moving the chains. And he needs somebody to coach him and to get in his head and to tell him just calm one play at a time. And he just gets he
gets so excited. I'm like, enhance your calm. It's like relax a little bit. I don't know. It's fine. So we'll see what happens. That is their worry, right? Is quarterback. Yep. They're much in the same boat as San Francisco. It's like, has that so much. So, so I want to talk about Carolina because they seem to be the darlings of this division so far in the offseason this year. Everyone is talking about Carolina. They have Frank Wright. They got Bryce Young. They're all excited. They have a whole new team. I'm interested to see, of course, Bryce Young is being one of the, top pick in the draft. We want to see what he can do. We want to see how he can play. That'll put, butts in the seats just for that. Right. Then you bring in Frank, and Frank, is a good, coach. It's not like he's not. So I think that is exciting for them too. I start to look at the rest of this. They did bring in Adam Thielen. Huge. I think that's a huge plus for them. And I think that'll be great for that young quarterback. They have DJ Chark in there. They have Hayden Hurst still. They have these pieces. They have Bozeman. Oh, I'm so jealous of their center. Anyway, Bradley Bozeman. So they have a decent line. sort of, but they have some good pieces in there. They brought in Jonathan Mingo. I think that is very interesting. And I think that'll be fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Then you look at the defensive side of the ball. They got Brian Burns, right? So that'll be good. Shaq Thompson. Their nose tackle's a guy named Shy Tuttle. All right. This is what I'm saying, and so I don't know where this is going to go, but on the offensive side of the ball, it looked like it could be okay if this rookie settles into whatever Frank's going to do with him.
Yeah, I agree. And it's going to be a lot about the offensive line for him and getting him some confidence early on. And I think Frank Reich's the right guy to bring Bryce Young along. My concern is the defense is going to be bad and they're going to give up a lot of points. And I don't know that you want Bryce Young in a gunfight right out the bat, right up off the, and he may end up in a lot of those. And so you're going to have to judge him by his performance and what the offense does and not wins and losses. Mm-hmm. Is he able to move the ball? Does he make smart decisions? Does he throw it away or take a sack instead of an interception? Those. And I think if I can say nothing else nice about Alabama quarterbacks, and I can't say a lot of nice things about them, they're smart. Yeah. They don't make bad decisions. Nick Saban drills that into them. Live to fight another down. Do not give the ball away to your opponent for free.
Absolutely.
So that'll just be something to remind fans as the season goes on, is you got to judge Bryce by what the offense is doing, not by wins and losses, because he can't control what the defense does.
Right. I don't think we can leave this defense conversation, though, without talking about J.C. Horn. I think that he is a piece for them that could really shine in the next year. He already was right there. He was so good. As long as he stays on the field, obviously that's a bit of an issue. But I did forget that they signed safety Von Bell. And I think that is helpful too. That secondary was a disaster for them. And so I think that'll be really good. But, you just look at, they had their additions with Thielen, Chark, Hayden Hurst, Miles Sanders. I think that is all going to be good for them. Here's the thing though, Kate, and we're not done talking about the division. Obviously, we're still got to talk about the Saints and the Falcons. But I think what's interesting is that Carolina, their mediocre could win them this division. I think that this division is not so harsh that it could.
No, completely.
All right. Yeah. So let's talk about the Saints, who, if you ask me, was the smartest team in football. Going to pick up Derek Carr, a pissed off, ready to show that he really is a quarterback, no matter what that asshole from New England says about him. I think that getting this quarterback, because they've had 5 quarterbacks since Drew Brees left?
Yeah.
I think this was the move for them. I love it. They get back some of their injured players. Obviously, we have a couple of question marks about some of their players now who, put in plea deals and things today. But I do think that the signing of Derek Carr is going to be the switch that this team needed.
Have you looked at their depth chart?
I'm just now pulling it up, actually.
Look at their quarterback depth chart, Dana.
I am.
Who's sitting at 4?
Oh my God, who is it? I'm looking right now.
How Taysom Hill still has a job in the NFL is beyond.
We hate him.
Let alone on a quarterback depth chart. Can we be done with the Taysom Hill experiment?
We begged for that last year.
Be done with him as a quarterback. Put him in as a tight end or something. I'm
Look
done.
At that.
I'm done.
But Jameis is in second. I love Jameis. Yeah. But that's it too. So let's say Derek Carr gets hurt. You bring in Jameson, or Jameis Winston. I think that is not so.
No.
I think that's a good thing. And to be honest with you, Cam, yeah, I'm with you, Katie. It's really gross. We're over him. But Camden put in there Dennis Allen and Carr, former Raiders. They play Raider football too. Not this wannabe Bill Belichick crap that they got going on. And I'm not a fan of the Raiders right now. But so, yeah, I think that's really interesting. You look at the rest of their depth chart too. They have, let's not forget Chris Olave. I feel like people love him, but he doesn't ever get talked about as being a huge difference maker in the offseason. During the season, he does because he does so many great things, but not offseason. Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, yes, injuries there. We'll have to see what happens there. But you look at the rest of this and their defense with Cam Jordan. Oh, I love Cam Jordan. Their defense was good last year. And with bringing in a quarterback who's consistent, who is, not just a Band-Aid from another team. And that's not against Jameis. Jameis got hurt last year, so that wasn't his fault. But everyone else, I just feel like it's been such pieced together really since Drew Brees has left.
Yeah.
I think Derek
Carr made a very wise decision in picking this team.
Yes.
He went to a team that really you could argue was a quarterback away from the next level. Is that Jameis got hurt again, and they were just like, they've got running backs, they've got wide receivers, they've got a solid defense. He found himself a very good place where he could just get in and go with veterans who know what they're doing. And it'll be interesting to see if they play Raider football there in Atlanta this year, or if it's more of, or in New Orleans, or if it's more of, what we've seen the last few years. I have high hopes for them. Again, any of these teams, we could roll some dice right now. Any of these teams could win this division. Yeah. And
for sure,
I think Derek gives them a leg up.
Oh, for sure. I want to remind people too that because, Kamara faces a suspension for his, he pleaded no contest to that, to his starting being in a fight in Vegas anyway. So if he has that, they signed Jamal Williams from the Lions, 17 rushing touchdowns last year for the Lions, right? So talk about taking some pressure off of Derek Carr. You have this and, and then what was his name?
They have smart front office people who looked at the Kamara situation. They looked at the Kamara situation and thought, we need a plan B. And they went and got them.
They did. It's great. I love it. I'm all about the Saints this year. I think the Saints are going to win this division. But that's just because I think that Derek Carr got a raw deal in Vegas. So I'm just going to say that. So anyway, so let's go ahead and talk about the Falcons. If there's much to talk about with the Falcons, this team bends my brain a little bit, right? Like, I think that they were terrible last year, and yet they have good players. Hello, Kyle Pitts still plays there, right? Love Kyle Pitts. But you look at the rest of this team, and, really, you're going out there with Desmond Ridder as your starter. How do we feel about that? Now, they have Taylor Heineke also. They have some guy named Philippe Franks as a quarterback. It just makes me happy. I don't know why. It really does. So what they're doing when they look at this, they're like, okay, Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson in your rookie year just been drafted. Come save our team. That's the way I feel about the Falcons this year.
Well, and you're right. They were horrible last year, and they were still tied for second place in the division. Three teams at 7-10. I love Desmond Ridder. I watched a lot of Cincinnati Bearcat football. I love him. I love what the Bearcats did. I love that he got drafted. He played in 4 games last year with had 700 yards, almost 64% completion rate, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He had 9 sacks. And so for me, the question is your offensive line that bad, or was it your 4 games as a rookie and you didn't know what you were doing and you need to learn to get rid of the ball kind of a thing? You can't be taking that many sacks. If they can figure that out with him, he could be the future of this team. I love him.
Really?
I love him in Cincinnati, and I love him, especially in this situation and on this team, because there are no expectations.
Right.
They know that they're rebuilding, and they know that they were garbage, and they're willing to give him the time to figure out what he needs. This is, in general, a very young team. With Drake London and Kyle. A lot of these guys are only in their second, third, fourth years. It's a very young team. If Ridder can get it together and put the pieces together this year, I don't think they have a chance to win the division. I think Carolina and New Orleans both do. I don't think Atlanta does, but I think they have a chance to prove that they have the right quarterback or not. We'll know this year.
Right.
Is he the guy or not? If he is, cool, you're set. Let's get some other stuff. If not, turn left and make another choice. So I think they're definitely going to be at the bottom of the division, but I think Falcon fans will see better football this year. which
You know what I love?
sometimes all you want to do is watch good football.
Right. You know what I love so much? Calais Campbell's on their team. So this is the lot. I love Calais Campbell. Anyone
How
who knows
old
me,
is he?
I don't care. I think he's like 37. He's gonna say, I adore him. I love the ground he walks on. I love everything about Calais Campbell. Biggest human I've ever seen in my entire life. But I will say this. When they signed him, I thought, I'm sorry. Camden, he is not 53. He is not 53.
36.
Okay. So here's what I think. When I thought they're like, I remembering that they're a young team. I'm like, they brought him in to teach them how to be professional football players. He is there as a mentor. He still can play, still looks good, will still teach these defensive linemen how to play the game, but that he has been, every team he's played for, he's been known as the locker room calming presence. Quality, and I think that that's going to be so good for this team, because you're right. They are really young and they have a lot of talent that never gelled. And so if they can just get it to go through there, I don't know that they'll be at the bottom of this division. I'm real curious about the Buccaneers and how that quarterback situation is going to play out. So we'll have to wait and see about that. But I don't know that Baker will be worse than Ritter. So we just have to kind of see how the coaching goes. But I think that one will be really good. So yeah, the South, roll the dice, people.
It may rise again.
Let's hope not.
They may have. I predict, here's my bold prediction. At least 2 teams in the South will be over 500 this year.
Well, that's saying something.
That's my bold prediction. Half the division will be over 500 this year. Since none of them were last year.
Oh my goodness.
I'm sorry. You shouldn't even be allowed to win your division at 8-9. If you can't get 9 wins in a 17-win season, then your division doesn't get a representative in the playoffs, and we're done.
In 16, it's allowed, but not 17. Okay.
Yes.
My team has done that. So, all right. So we're headed in, guys. I told you it's going to be a long one. We're headed into the NFC West, which I know is very interesting to a lot of our listeners. Kate, talk to me about the NFC West.
NFC West, San Francisco 49ers, who I think shocked everybody last year with 13 wins, 4 losses, and I think 12 quarterbacks. Seattle Seahawks with 9.
Yeah.
Los Angeles Rams with 5. Arizona Cardinals with 4. I don't know why the Cardinals continue to surprise me by being as bad and winning as few games as they do every year. I should just accept it. I don't know when the Cliff Kingsbury experiment will be over.
It was over. He got fired.
Is he gone? Is there a new sheriff in town?
Weird wackadoodle.
I missed that on my long list of who's what where.
You're good.
So
don't feel bad, Kate. Let me tell you this. I was doing some research for this just to kind of get the stats and like who they picked up in the draft and stuff. And so there's this CBS Sports article where they talk about the NFC West and the preview and all the teams. They talk about 3 of them. They don't even talk. The Cardinals is not in the article. Crack me up. Not going to lie.
That's a little harsh.
I thought so too.
That's a little harsh.
Anyway, yeah.
So let's talk San Francisco 49ers. Brock Purdy. They now have Sam Darnold on their bench and Trey Lance. I don't know what happened to Trey Lance. I thought he was the future of quarterbacks in America, and apparently he's now 3rd on their depth chart. We'll see how Brock Purdy does in his 2nd year. When you've got Christian McCaffrey running the ball and also serving as a backup quarterback, I don't know how things could go wrong for you. Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Juwan Jennings, George Kittle. I mean, they're just on offense. They are firing in all cylinders. Their defense is going to be just as good as it was last year. You know, Nick Bosa and Dre Greenlaw I could watch them play all day, even though
stupid good. I don't know.
Nick and I have some beef. I get a little aggravated with college players who don't play in a bowl game when it's part of the BCS for a championship, but I get it. It's a business. You want to stay healthy.
She might be bitter. She might be bitter about that.
Bitter, table for one. And petty, apparently.
Right.
I think the 49ers are pretty solid for this year. When it came to the time to draft, they did not have a first round pick, and they did not have a second round pick. They didn't even start picking until the third round. Their first choice was Jair Brown, safety out of Penn State. So they went safety, and then they went place kicker. I can't.
God, I love it when San Francisco does the weird things.
And then Cameron Latu, the tight end out of Alabama. I like him. But they didn't have any picks until the third round because of trades and other things.
Because of Trey Lance.
Who's now third on their depth chart. So we'll see how that goes. I mean, it's really all about Brock Purdy this year. No matter how good everyone else is on that team, George Kittle and Debo and Christian and all of that, if Brock Purdy doesn't play as well now this year as he did last year, I don't know that Sam Darnold is someone you want to see every week. So
right. Here's the thing with that, though. I will say this about San Francisco because I know this team very well. Here's the thing. If they can figure out their quarterback situation, whatever it may turn out to be, Purdy might not be ready. They might have to start Darnold for a few games, maybe still bring in Trey Lance. I still think they're trying to trade him at some point, that sort of thing. The rest of that team is good enough to keep whoever's in there, at least to start, even if it is Trey Lance, to keep them competitive. The problem that has always come with San Francisco is they're insanely good one year and insanely terrible the next is their injury history. So what do? Go get the most injury-prone running back they can possibly find to put on that team. Is Christian McCaffrey fantastic? Yes, I would kill to have him in Seattle, but we have enough running back injuries that we didn't need anymore, right? And so that is truly the key with San Francisco. The key with San Francisco is figure out a quarterback and make sure you actually can keep George Kittle on the field. Make sure you can keep these players on the field. That has been a horrible issue for them, and to the point where fans have always questioned, like, what is going on in strength and conditioning? Like, this is insane because they just get bit over and over and over again. And so that needs to be a huge important. San Francisco is a beast, and they're going to be a beast for a while, but they're only a beast every other year or every third year because of these injury issues. So they are a team on paper. That's the team you want. Rarely does that paper stay, unsmudged. And so that's where it'll be. Their biggest issue is their quarterback issue. And yes, the rest of the team, especially that defense, can help them in that situation, but it cannot always win them games, especially when it comes to some of the teams they're playing that can play shootout. You know what I mean? So it'll be interesting in San Francisco for sure.
Yep. Seattle Seahawks, Geno Smith. I don't care what Lisa says. I don't care how much Geno wins games.
Yeah, he does.
He played 16 games last year, completed 56% of his passes. His problem was 12 touchdowns and 21 interceptions. That was in 2013, right? That was when he started at the beginning of what he was doing. That's why people like Lisa don't like him. Last year, he had 30 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. He's flipped those numbers. She needs to get off the whole Geno stinks thing and move on to, this is not 2013 Geno. This is now 2023. Geno has learned a lot in the last 10 years. Let it go. Let it go, Lisa.
Well, if he does it again this year, she's going to have to shut up about it because it just...
One would think.
Yeah.
But she's Lisa. So, because if he doesn't, then who's going to come in? Drew Lock? Holton Ahlers? I mean, you don't have a lot of options sitting behind him.
Right.
But you've got Kenneth Walker III, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith, and Jigma was my favorite pick of the draft because, yes, I'm a Buckeyes homer. Love him. You are going to love him. Noah Fant was my favorite of the Iowa tight ends. When he and TJ Hawkinson came out, I thought Noah would have better numbers. TJ has done better in the NFL, but he has also been on better teams and more complete teams, and he's moved around a little bit. I think Noah Fant is a very, very good tight end for you to have there. And I know you could talk a lot more about everything that's going on in Seattle better than I could. You just made me do this division so you didn't come off like a complete
homer. I didn't want to be a total homer. The funny thing.
9 wins from last year is definitely doable. I think 11, in looking at their schedule, is not unreasonable. I think they surprised me and quite a few other people with how well they did last year. You guys kind of had your mindset of it's a rebuilding year and we got to kind of just take it easy. And they came in second. And they looked pretty good at times, especially near the end of the season. So I've got them going double-digit wins this year and given the 49ers a run for their money. And they'll probably have little Brock Purdy and Christian McCaffrey voodoo dolls for sale at the 12-team shop. But my expectations are back up with Seattle again this year.
The interesting thing with this team is completely entrenched as I am in it, is that we've all been a little gun shy, and last year we were just like, crap, and then in the first game when Jamal Adams got injured and was out for the season, we're like, are you freaking kidding me? This is how we're starting. Because we didn't know what to expect from Geno. Yes, he beat Russell Wilson in the first game. That's all we cared. We didn't care if we won another game the rest of the season. And then it turned out to be great. The interesting thing about Seattle is, once again, they are a very young team. That is what they have been rated the highest, or one of the highest drafts the last 2 years in a row. Thank you, Russell Wilson, because they've had so many draft picks. They got the number one, position player at their position with their 2 first-round picks, in Witherspoon and JSN.
Yeah, so Devin, I think Witherspoon's the cornerback they got out of Illinois, and then Jackson Smith and Jigba, wide receiver, the Ohio State University.
Yeah, the Ohio State University. So I think, but not only that, they got a fantastic running back. They keep getting all these players. They're young. What I'm excited to watch about in Seattle this year is to watch the good players that we got last year in the draft, see them make that second-year jump. I think that that's going to be huge. And then to see how these rookies come in. There's a good question Katie put up there, are we going to see Jamal? So Jamal Adams, obviously, there is a huge argument within Seattle fandom whether he was worth what they gave him. As of right now, no, just simply because he's been injured after injury after injury. But when he's on the field, he changes the damn game. I love Jamal. And so I think that he actually will probably see him. I would not be surprised if it was within the first 4 to 6 games. I think that they will ease him back just to make sure he's good to go after that injury that really is career threatening. And so he has come back from that, which is huge. If he comes back big, it'll be comeback player of the year. It'll be huge. So I think that they'll be good. I think they improved the defense where they needed to. I think Seattle got better. And so when you look at what they did last year and then they got better in the offseason to what they have now, I think you're right. I think that they will give San Francisco a run for the money. And if you watch Twitter, San Francisco fans are a little worried about that. And they should be, because they know that their quote unquote leader as a quarterback is in question. So that makes them nervous. But Seattle is in a prime spot to surprise people once again. And, but to then again, also not really be considered a threat, which could be interesting along with some of these other NFC teams, because the AFC gets so much hype that, sometimes these AFC teams can go under the radar. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah. Los Angeles Rams finished 5-12 last year, 1-5 in their division. And I think the biggest story, about their record for me last year was they went 1-8 on the road. Like, I get that it's tough to play on the road. You got to win more than one road game. It's just, that's just, I don't understand why they have such a problem with the road. Matthew Stafford is back with Brett Rippon, and Stetson Bennett third. I'm not a fan of Stetson Bennett. I know he played Georgia. I know they won. I know all of that stuff. I almost feel like that team won despite him. So let's just hope Matthew Stafford stays healthy. I don't understand what went on last year. They've got Cooper Kupp, Cam Akers, Van Jefferson, Tyler Higbee. They've got so much talent. I don't know what fell apart on the offensive side of the ball last year.
Yeah.
It was just a hot mess. 5 games is shameful. I don't know that any of us had them winning the division, but I know when we did our Pick'em show, we had them with more than 5 wins.
Yeah. I didn't win the division. Yeah.
So
coming off a Super Bowl. And that's just it. They made NFL history by having the least wins after winning a Super Bowl. I mean, how awful is that, right? So in the chat, Katie said, I thought Stafford had a career-ending injury, and Camden was like, right. So he has a neck injury that can be career-ending. he can decide to continue to play. Apparently, there is some conversation whether he will or not. He says yes. I think his wife says no. And there's a little bit of back and forth there. So we'll see what happens with Stafford. I think that even if he does come back, we are not going to have Matt Stafford from 10 years ago. And I think that's who they thought they were getting. And it's like he's getting older and these injuries are mounting up. Then there was a news story that came out that Aaron Donald might be traded. It's like, oh, what the hell is going on? I know they have to start over. They have to start over. They need to get some of these picks back.
Yeah.
They went from F those picks to I have to have all the picks. And so I think that that's where that's coming from.
They spent everything to win that Super Bowl. They bought every player they could and traded away. And now they're paying the price for that. And they may have to, depending on what they can get for him, they may have to move Aaron Donald and some other people this year. I had forgotten that Stafford was a Georgia quarterback. So maybe he'll bring Stetson along and they'll be fine and it'll be okay. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah. Camden says, Donald likely retire unless it's the Chiefs or something. Yes. I think that he would be like, because he was almost retired last year. So I think that they're like, you got to go. Unless he's like, oh, I'll help out my old team, which I don't think players do anymore. So, yeah, I think that he would probably retire. But it's interesting because you're 100% right. You know, they lost, a lot of players, but at the same time, they still have so much talent in there. It just, they still have Cooper Kupp. They did lose Jalen Ramsey. They lost Allen Robinson, who wasn't used properly at all in that system. So he could never contribute in any way, shape, or form. So I think that what we're going to see out of the Rams is probably a mid-level team who is trying to, save something so they don't start that very fickle fan base, know.
And it could be a little bit Super Bowl hangover. It could be a little bit of, we're so full of ourselves. We don't have to practice hard. We just won the Super Bowl. We're the best team ever. And then getting proven on the field that you're really not, and you need to get back to work. And then the last team in this division that we should talk about so that we don't forget them like other sites do.
They were not on there at all.
The Arizona Cardinals are 4-13. And what's troublesome for me about the Cardinals is they were also only 1-5 in the division. They went 1-8 at home. And on top of that, they lost the last 7 games of the season. I don't know how you
Kyler Murray
finish a season on a 7-game losing streak. Like, they need to get that going quick and get off of that and get back to winning and start building a little confidence. You've got Kyler Murray at quarterback with Colt McCoy sitting behind him and Clayton Tune in third. Clayton Tune is a quarterback that I actually had a chance to talk to at the Combine. Really like him, really smart. He's an older quarterback out of Houston. He's 24. He left for a couple years and if I'm remembering correctly, on a mission and then came back. He is very bright, very smart, very good leader, did a lot of good things in Houston. I was super excited when Arizona drafted him, just because I thought he might actually get a chance to play. Yeah. It would not surprise me if the Kyler Murray situation, if either with the injury or just with his play on the field, why would you bother putting Colt McCoy in? You already know what he is. He's not the future of your franchise. Clayton Tune could get some time this year. He could get some gains and some snaps if we get to the midway point and Arizona's like, listen, we got to figure out what we got. They do have other good players on that team, but I mean, aside from Zach Ertz at tight end, I don't know that there's anybody on here. Maybe Marquise Brown that I'm drafting on my fantasy football team. I haven't had James Conner on a fantasy running team as a running back in years. I don't know how he's still in the league. There's just not a lot going on there. I don't know what they've done with their draft capital and their off-season stuff. They picked up Paris Johnson Jr., offensive tackle out of Ohio State, with the 6th overall pick in the draft, which may be the smartest thing they've done in the last 2 years from a draft standpoint, because that offensive line is a hot mess. So that will help with whoever they have under center. But I don't know that this team can even get to 500. I'll put them and the Rams in the same place. I don't know if either of these teams can get to 500 this year.
So the interesting thing about Arizona, a couple of points, because I did look them up after they weren't in the article. So obviously they have a new GM. They got rid of Steve Keim, and I think that that's why we saw a shift in their drafting strategy. They were much more aggressive than they have been in the past. I thought that was great for that team. But they have a new head coach. They have a new offensive coordinator. And this offensive coordinator, Petzing, I think is something like that. So he is a completely different type of offensive coordinator. And apparently the news coming out of their camp is he's completely changed their offense 100%. It is going to be a run first offense. Then that I think will bode very well for Kyler Murray. I think Kyler Murray has some talent, but I just don't get lovely feels about Kyler Murray. And I think that going run first, but every single player that was interviewed said it is totally different. They had to throw everything out the door. They are starting over. Two things. Number one, that's going to take a season to come into play, right? You're going to take a little while to get this rolling. Doesn't mean they're not going to win any games. It might just take a minute. Number two, that means Kyler Murray has to adapt. Now, they're not even sure that he will start the season. They're depending on it because of his ACL that he had last year. But that is going to take some time, especially if he can't practice or he's not, cleared to play, then he's going to have to learn this whole new system. So I think Cardinals fans need to just realize that this year's probably not their year. They're just still going to look like the Cardinals. But then I think the turnabout about that is that if the new head coach, if the new GM, if the new coordinators get their way, they're going to get a couple drafts and it's going to be a different Cardinals team. It has been a very poorly managed team for the last 5+ years. And I think that this could be the change for them. So this isn't it, but it's coming.
Yeah, I will just throw out the cautionary tale that Drew Petzing was the Cleveland Browns quarterback coach.
Well, shit. And now he wants to run the ball.
And now he wants to run the ball. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, my God. I love it so much.
We did it here. If you can run the ball, you can win games. It changes everything on the offense. It makes up for quarterbacks who aren't where you'd like them to be. It helps to hide a lot of their shortcomings if you can run the ball. I just don't know that they have the right people currently on their roster to do what he wants to do. But I completely agree with you. This is baby steps. They are moving towards this, and
they've got to fix it from the top, down. There's a whole thing there. So
yeah.
I told you guys we're going to keep you long, and we could talk about the NFC forever. And that's so funny because Kate, last time when we did the AFC, we talked about how at the beginning of that show, we talked about how there's that whole debate that the AFC right now is so much better than the NFC. And the funny thing is I think the NFC is actually more competitive. The AFC has some better teams. They have these elite teams, but the NFC is a dogfight. And I think that that's going to be fun for some of these people to watch. Does that mean they can stand up in Super Bowls and things and beat the AFC? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But I think that it's going to be interesting in this conference this year.
I think the AFC is more predictable. I think there are quite a few divisions in the NFC that are completely up for grabs, 1 to 4 up for grabs. And again, we'll be doing our Pick'em show in a few weeks. And I bet when we grade ourselves at the end of the year, we will have gotten more AFC picks right than we will get NFC picks right.
I think you're right. All right, everyone. That is our show. Thank you for hanging out. I know it was over an hour. I appreciate you guys so much for hanging out with us, especially all of our commenters in our chat. You guys, and when you watch this show, come over to YouTube. Talk to us. We love to put your comments up. We love to answer your questions. We love your opinions. We love your thoughts. So please,
we love when you agree with us.
Yeah. You don't have to agree.
Even when you don't.
Argue with us if you want to. We love that. But here's the thing. This is it. July 11th is the beginning of our season. So next week we start officially the 2023 NFL season. We are going to be here with you every Tuesday at 8:00. Until after the Super Bowl. So you get us back for good. So
this won't be an hour and 15 minutes.
It won't. I promise you. Our podcasts are normally 30 to 40 minutes. I promise. So, but we have to do a whole division, and it was a good one. So, all right, everybody, we will be back again next Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Come to YouTube. Come join us. I don't even know if they're counting views on Twitter anymore, but don't use up your Twitter views on that show. Come to YouTube instead. And make sure you hit the subscribe button so that you get notified when we go live. All right. I will talk to you guys. Kate and I both, we'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye, everybody.